for the MCT Nigeria M365 user group. 2 weeks ago, we had this session, the same session on our journey to introduction to Microsoft 365. For those of you that were not in that session, yes, we have the recording available for you on our YouTube channel. We'll share that shortly. For those of you who have been waiting for a while, thank you for your patience. And for those that just joined, we're glad to have you here. Okay, so 2 weeks ago, some of the things we looked at, introduction to Microsoft 365, where we look at a bit of introduction to cloud computing, the concept of cloud computing. We look at the different cloud deployment model, which is the infrastructure as a service, the software as a service, and the platform as a service. Also, we went further to look at the different deployment model that is available, which is the public, the cloud, and also the hybrid. I mean, the public, the private, and hybrid. So this week, we will continue from where we stopped. As at last week, we were able to set up a tenant, and then we navigated through the tenant, but Idara will be doing more justice to it. But one of the things that comes to mind is this. As the last week when we set up our trial, we set up with Microsoft 365 Premium Plan. But we thought of it that because this session is going to last for the rest of the year, and that plan is only giving you a 30 days trial, we decided that it will be better for you to do rather go to the developers program. So on the chat window, I will be putting in the link for the developers program, where you can sign up for a trial that will last you for almost 90 days, and then they will continue to renew it for you. So one of the things I want you to do there is that once you are able to sign up for this, what will happen is you will be able to, for the rest of the year, follow our session and be able to do your exercise. Meanwhile, we are particular actually about this exercise because we're going to be sharing with you the links to some of these exercise instructions so that you can also go along with us, because we said the program is from the basic to intermediate and then to expert. That is the whole essence of this program. We want to get you up and running with the Microsoft 365. So if you're a student, this is the right place for you to be. If you are an IT professional, you are also welcome, and you're just starting your career in IT, this is the right place for you to be and to start learning. So a little bit of housekeeping before we start. Please, if you have any question, indicate with the raise of hand, or because there's going to be a question and answer session which will give you the permission for you to ask your question. But if you're going to ask any question before that time, you can use the chat window. Also, please kindly keep mute so that you will not distract the speaker when it comes in. So without wasting much of your time, I'm going to hand over now to Idara. So Idara, over to you, please.
Thank you, MJ. Good day, everybody. Like MJ said, this is the second part of our session, which we started earlier last week or 2 weeks ago. Now, we started with the creation of your tenant, and after that, we're moving to the next stage, which will have to now deal with your user accounts, the groups, and the licenses, which your users will need to carry out most of the activities, accessing cloud applications and the resources provided to you by your O365 tenant. So today we'll just be going through how you can manage your user accounts for organizations that already have an on-premise Active Directory and they want to now introduce the cloud to like have a hybrid environment. You already have users that you can sync to the cloud. We'll see that later on in other sessions. But for users that might just want to start up, like we said, we would like you to try your hands on this. You also need to create users for you to see the experience, and we'll be seeing that how to do that via the PowerShell and also the admin center. You have attributes you can change for users, make changes to your user accounts, manage your licenses and services which this license provides them, and also groups which you can use to manage your users and their various departments. So without further ado, I'll be going to the portal. So last time we saw how the creation was done, and we will get to see our admin portal or our admin page where we can now control or manage our organization. So I just want us to get familiar with this page. So after I sign into my portal.office.com/admin portal, I get to see the homepage, and I can also see some of the panes on the left, the users, the groups, the roles, the billing. And all of this, we'll get to that because that's the major talk for today. So I just want to show us around some other capabilities of this admin portal. Starting from the bottom, we have the customized navigation. On this pane, we can decide to see or to choose what we see anytime we log into this portal. Do we want to just see these 4 things, or do we want to select all and make sure that every time we get into the portal, we save this? We will always see this extended view, so we don't have to click the show all like I did earlier. Now, we also see all admin centers here, and we see the most frequently or the most frequently visited admin centers, the security center, the endpoint manager, the Azure Active Directory. If we click on the all admin centers, we also get to see others like the SharePoint admin center and others. We see the health, where we can see the health of our tenant and if there's any service advisory from Microsoft that we should take note of. We also have usage reports, which is a very good play or a good pane for most organizations. So we have organizations that maybe they are moving forward from old applications like the Skype for Business, and now they are moving towards Teams, and they want to drive adoption to their end users. You can use the reports pane and see usage and see how your organization have been consuming these Teams or their Teams activities, and if they are now storing their drives, their documents in OneDrive to see to further help them when they are using various devices, and to also extend collaboration using things like SharePoint sites and how the activities on Yammer and Forms and whatnot. So that's what the report gives you. Also, we have the setup where you can change or add various aspects or improve your organization as a whole, create a new domain, and whatever we choose to do. So under the settings panes, we're going to see domains, right? So I spoke about organizations that already exist and they now want to move to the cloud or have a hybrid environment. You already have a domain name that has been provided to you by your tenant. So every tenant you create has the on Microsoft.com attached to it. It comes by default. But I have an organization, for instance, that already has a domain name, right? And I want to also make sure that my users can use this UPN suffix on the cloud. I don't want them to be using the on Microsoft because it might be cumbersome or hard for them to remember 2 UPN suffix for the on-premise and the cloud. How do I want to do that? Also, I just want us to note that the .local suffix, maybe my domain name is my domain.local, that cannot be routed via the cloud. So we have to have a domain that has .com, .org, and the likes of it. So we'll be able to add that domain suffix to the cloud. So before we go on to see how we can manage that for the first time, and I want to add my custom domain to this. So I click on settings, I go to domains, and I click on add domain. It brings me to a page where it asks me for my domain name. The domain name I'm going to be using for this exercise is shaville.com.ng. Now I have inputted my domain name, and I'm going to say use this domain. Microsoft is going to verify to see if this domain actually exists on the Windows domain. So when it loads, it's going to verify my domain name. I also have this domain, a cloud provider, and you can see here it says, before we set up your domain, we need to verify that you are the owner of this domain. So I cannot just decide to put any domain name that it doesn't belong to me and say I want to add it to a tenant. It will cause problems to the web. So I have to verify, and my domain name has to be verified by my domain provider. It says I should add a TXT record to my domain DNS records for me to ensure that I am the owner of this domain. So I'm going to say add a TXT record to my domain. Now, it says I have to add this TXT record with TXT name, TXT value, and TTL value to my domain DNS records. To do this, I have to go to my domain provider. For me, my domain host is Cloudflare. Some people might have their domain in GoDaddy, some people might have theirs in Domain King. Whatever, the process is still the same. And the domain I'm trying to verify is shavillgroup.com. So I'm just going to click that. And like we saw earlier, it says that I should add a TXT record to my DNS. So I click on DNS. This is, like I said, this process is the same, but the experience or the user interface might be different for different cloud domain providers. And what does it say I should add? It says I should add the TXT value with this TXT name. So I'm just going to start that. and say add a record. And what record do I want to add? They said it's a TXT record to verify my domain. And what is the record of the name? I will just copy this and paste. So it's that easy. I don't even have to start typing. I can just copy and paste. What's the time? I saw 3,600, which is 1 hour, 3,600 seconds. And what is the content of this TXT record to verify my domain? This is the TXT value. I will just copy and paste on my domain provider. After doing this, I'll save this record, right? Let me edit it. Right? So after saving, I'll go and see if this TXT record can help me verify my domain. I'll click on verify. And it says you can't find my TXT record, sorry. Yeah, I made an error in the name, so it's double C. That's why it was giving me that error. I'm going to go forward to verify this. Yes, like we saw earlier, I'm just going to add a TXT record and continue. And now I'm going to copy the values and repeat the process which I just repeated or just carried out. Let me edit this. And it's correct. I'm going to edit the content which I copied earlier because it has changed now. I copied the value. Is that here? And I'm just going to save. And now I'm going to try and verify the domain again. So we can see that we've moved to the next page. Now, what this page is talking about is because I have I'm not taking advantage of the cloud. We have the Exchange Online, we have SharePoint Online, we have Teams Online. I also have to create some records like the MX record for the Exchange Online, the SRV record for these components of the cloud, which I'm going to consuming. So to do that, I won't be doing that in this session because we'll see that in other sessions that will follow, and that might take a while. So I'm just going to verify the domain name like this, and I'm going to close. So the verification for the Exchange Online and the Teams Online will come later in other sessions. So please endeavor to join our other sessions for us to see that. Now we can see that I've added the domain name and it will tell me it's an incomplete setup, right? Because I didn't add the other TXT records which will be needed for Exchange Online and others. This is my domain name and it has the incomplete setup, but that's not an issue. Right now we can move on to the next stage. So the main purpose of this our discussion is to manage users, groups, and licenses. Now, these are the users I have in my organization at the moment, which is me, and this is another user, right? So for an organization that has a number of users that they want to add from the scratch, maybe I have 100 users or 200 users, I cannot start adding the users one by one, right? It's bulk users, so I can use the add multiple users option. Now, to do this, I can say I want to use a CSV that I already created. If I don't know how to go about this, I have the option to download a CSV with headers so I can have an idea of what the CSV is supposed to contain. So let me just choose this option so we can see what the CSV will contain if I want to use the GUI to provision users. So here I have the username, I have the first name, I have last name, and I know the properties or the attributes of this user that I have to put in the CSV if I want to use a CSV to upload my users. So some organizations that, like I said, that are already existing, they already have users that they might want to, and I can now just browse to where my CSV is saved and impute that CSV and now create these users. Now this method is going to create the users and it's going to provide a password for these users also. So if I have 100 users, it's going to provide 100 different passwords for these 100 users, and that might be hard to navigate if I have to communicate with my users. So let's just see how we'll do this with PowerShell, how we can consume also provision users using PowerShell. So I'm just going to copy my username first because we'll need that to connect to the MSO service. I'll copy the username and let's see how to connect to PowerShell. So if I want to see what I have on the admin center via my PowerShell, if I'm someone or people that like to use PowerShell, you can also do that. So it's connect MSO service. I'll click enter. It asks me for my username, which I will impute, and it will ask me for a password. I'll input my password also. So it's verifying my identity before giving me access to my admin center via the PowerShell. We saw 2 users, right, earlier. So I'll just confirm if I'm actually connected to my admin center. So I'll just say get MSO user and see the users that are available. And I can see that I'm actually connected to my admin center because the same 2 users are what have been provided to me by my PowerShell. So let's go back to the admin center. Now, I showed us how to add bulk users using the admin center. I will show us how to add bulk users using PowerShell. Now, I have a CSV, right, of the users that are in an organization that I want to add. I have the username of these users with the VPN suffix .microsoft.com. If I want to use the shavilgroup.com.ng, I can also change that. I have their first name, I have the departments, and I have these attributes that I want the users to have when I add them to my tenant. I want to add these users using PowerShell because, okay, let me show us this, the password part. I want all the users that I'm adding. If I have 1,000 users, especially for large organizations that might have a lot of employees, that maybe in months they might have 20, 10, and I have to be the one, I'm the IT admin in charge of provisioning these users. I have to now provide a means that's easier for me so I can have a single password for all of these new users. I'll provision that in a column of my CSV to ensure that when I create these users, all I need to do is give them their username and a single password. They will always change the password after signing in. I won't have to remember 10 passwords for 10 users. So this is the CSV. It has all of the attributes I need. Now we'll see how to do this with PowerShell. Now this is PowerShell, and this is the PowerShell command I'm going to use. I would like us to see some of the attributes that we got from the CSV. So from this PowerShell, we can see this part is where my CSV is stored. If the attributes I want to add from this PowerShell, I want it to get the display name, the first name, the last name, the department, the job title, phone numbers, and also the password of each user. So it's going to get this information from where? Because of this import CSV, and I piped it to these attributes, it's going to get the information from CSV file. I'm just going to press enter for it to provision users for me in my environment. And we can see the users are being created one after the other. And with just 2 lines of PowerShell script, I've been able to provision 10 users at once. And if I just do the get MSO user that we did earlier to see the 2 users that are in my environment, we'll see the results and see that these users have now been added to my users list. To get MSO user, we can now see that from 2, which we saw earlier, we now have multiple users. We can also verify this from the GUI. Let's see how many users have been added. Let's just refresh this list and see. So we can see just like that, I've added 10 users. So PowerShell is actually more favorable when you're coming to create bulk changes to existing users or creating bulk creation of new users. That's where PowerShell is more hands-on. It gives ease to the IT admin instead of doing all of this one by one. Imagine I had to create 10 users or 100 users with the add user button. I'll have to create a user one after the other like this. Do the same process of first name and last name, and so let's just say John Lennon. This is me creating a user. The display name will be updated for me. I want his name to be John, and I will create a password for him. It's a password. One user I'm creating. This is the process I'm going through. Creating just one user. I'm going to require the user to have changed his password. I'm going to assign a license to this user if I want or not. I can also see the services under the license. So each license has a service that you can choose to activate or turn off for your users. For this license we have on this tenant, we have the Business Premium license here, and these are the services afforded to you by Business Premium. They have the AIP Protection Premium, the cloud service, cloud app security, and whatnot. So I'm just going to choose next. And now we can see if I want this user, if this user I'm creating is going to be an admin, I can choose an admin role. If I want to also edit attributes of this user, we saw from my CSV, I had department, job title, and whatnot. This is how I'll be doing it. And just bear in mind that this is just for one user. Imagine if I have to do this whole process for a couple of users, 20, 15, how cumbersome it's going to be. So I just want us to know the power of PowerShell, or the aid which PowerShell provides to us. Maybe our office is in Ikoyi. Do that, phone number, and I'll have to add this attribute and finish. So I'll finish creating a user, one user via PowerShell. And we can see how long it took for me to create just one user, comparing to how I created 10 users or more using the PowerShell. Another useful tip that is mostly overlooked by others is this user template. So I spoke about an organization. Imagine I have a large corporation that has over 20 departments, and we have a lot of recruitment around the year. I will have to create users that have been added to my organization. One of the best parts of this is this user template is something that can aid me do that. So if I have a user template for each department, every time I want to create a user, I do not have to start adding all those attributes. I can just have a template where all that will be required for me is the username. So let's just see how that looks. So I'm going to say maybe for accounting department, I'm creating a template for those in accounting department, and I'll name it accounting. For accounting department. I'm going to go next. Now, this is the domain name that I want the user to have. This is my domain-wide name that's widely known for outsiders and even insiders. So I'm going to say that should be the default. I'm going to also create a password for this template, and I'll require the users to change their password after I give them the password which I'll create for them. And I'm going to say the license that this department will have. So if I have an accounting department and I want that, even though they will have this license, for those in accounting department, they should be unable to use DataFlex, they should be unable to use Forms. I just want them to use the rest, or they should not use Microsoft 365 apps, or they should not use analytics, whatever. That's a default that has been set by my organization. I can create a template, which we are doing right now, that will have this license attached to that template. Now, the profile, since it's an accounting department, and I know that people that will be employed to this department are accountants, and the department in my organization is named accounting, and also the office is located in Ikoyi, right? And the office phone, if they have an office phone number, a fax machine, I can put that. Maybe the address is 1 Microsoft Way. I can impute that also. Which city are we? We're in Yaba. Let's just say Yaba. And the state is Lagos. What template has done for me is that giving me all presets for all of these users that I'll be applying or creating using this template. And I'm just going to save and say, now users that have been employed to accounting department, I will not have to go through this process again. I just have to come here, use that template, accounting. All that's required for me is to impute the user's name, Michael. Let's say Michael. Jackson. Username Michael. And I can see the password. Since I chose I'll be the one creating the password, it gives me the option to create the password. And I'm going to add user. So that's all. The first time I was creating a user, we saw that I had to put in the attributes like the job title, the department, and all of this. But since I'm using the template I already created, these attributes are already populated for me, and I'll add a user. So in 3 lines, I've been able to add a user using the template. So this is also one of the tools we can have in our back pockets for organizations that might be large or even small corporations. It's useful in any of these instances. Now let's go back to see what else we can do with the admin center and what else we can do with PowerShell. We can also see that these users do not have licenses, which I did on purpose because I want us to be able to apply licenses using the PowerShell and also using the GUI. To see the licenses that are available to my organization, I will go to billing, right? And I'm going to see licenses, and I'll click on licenses. And from here, I will see that I have the Microsoft 365 Business Premium, 21 available licenses. Well, 4 have been assigned out of 25, so I have just 21 available. If I was going to add users or add these licenses to various users, I will click on the license and I will say assign license. Now, if I imagine the 10 users which I just created that are unlicensed, I will have to come here and add the users one by one. Say Tony, which is one of the users I added, right? I'll add Tony to this license. I'll also choose another person, maybe Ben. I'll set for Ben. And this is how I'll do it. Imagine I have to do this for 10 users, 20 users. The more the number, the more strenuous it is to do this one by one. So this is how to add license to each user using the the GUI. So let's see how we can do that using PowerShell. Now, first, under this, when I did the get MSO user, we can see it's licensed, which is telling me if this user is licensed or not. False for those who don't have license, and true for those who have license. Now we added a few users, so let's just do the get MSO user again to see the users which are added, and they have been populated. Now to filter through, because I want to now see the users in my organization that do not have license. Since I want to apply license to them,
Hello, Idara. We lost you there. We lost you there. I think your internet. I guess he's having problem with his internet.
And I say,
hello, Idara. Hello. Hello, Idara.
Yes, ma, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. No, we lost you. We lost you when you started talking. So maybe, I mean, your internet, I'm sure it's your internet. So we lost you a bit there.
Okay, so I'll just rewind a bit to talk about the licenses, right? That way you lost me out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think your internet quality is very poor. I'm sure. Okay.
But can you hear me now? Is it better now?
Yes, very well. We can.
Okay. So I will just go over the licenses again. So to apply licenses using the GUI, you have to scroll to your navigation pane. You see the billing. You click on licenses, and it will show you the licenses that are available to your organization. Some organizations have multiple licenses for different tiers of users. So they have the management tier. They might want to use the E5 license for those ones, and they want to use the E3 license for other users to avoid or to provide more of security capabilities of these licenses. Because these licenses might be expensive, they might want to just have a few number to apply to various users. So from this organization, this tenant we're using, we have just one license, which is the Microsoft 365 Premium. Now, we want to apply the license to users in my organization. The unlicensed users, which I have, like I know them, we can now come here and say add or assign licenses, and I will have to select the users by their email address or by their name, one after the other. So these are the users in my organization, and I can now start selecting one after the other the users I want to assign license to. But imagine if I don't even have the exact number of users who don't have license, or I cannot tell the numbers of users I've assigned this license to or not. I have to start searching one after the other, going back to users and coming back to assign these licenses. But with PowerShell, I can easily filter to see those who have licenses assigned to them by just using the get MSO command. Get MSO user will give me all the users in my organization, and I will see under the is license blade if it's false or true. I can further filter to see those users that don't have licenses, because those are the ones I'm concerned with, and those are the ones I want to assign a license to. So using the get MSO user command and filtering with the string of unlicensed users only, I can see that these are the users in my organization that do not have a license. And I want to assign a license to them using PowerShell, because I don't want to start going one after the other like we saw earlier using GUI to assign this license. Which license do I have in my organization at the first place? We saw there's Microsoft 365 Premium, but for PowerShell doesn't understand the normal GUI name. PowerShell uses the account school ID. That's what it's called, the account school ID, to recognize the licenses in our environment. So when I run this command, we can see here, this is the name that PowerShell recognizes as a license. So my Microsoft 365 Business Premium is actually represented by my domain name, which is Wintest PLC :SPB. That's what PowerShell will recognize as the name of my licenses. So I said I want to assign this license to just the unlicensed users only. So when I use the get MSO user and filter with the unlicensed users only, I'm going to pipe it to say I want to set an MSO property, right? MSO user property. And which user property that I want to set is the license. So I want to set MSO user license, and I want to add the license to the users. But which license do I want to add? Is this license, the premium license, which is recognized by this Wintest PLC column SPB. So let's add that license to our users. And I'm going to press enter. So by doing this, I've filtered my users in my organization to those who don't have licenses. And I've also assigned the license which I want to all of these users. We can see that it has run now with no errors. So let's run the command, the get MSO user, to see all of them in my organization, first of all, to see what is under this license blade, to know if our licenses have been applied. We can see everything now has changed to true. So all my users that were on license before are now licensed. We can even go further to say, let's even see the users that are unlicensed in my environment to see if there's anyone left. Since I filtered using that and applied the license, let's see if any result will come out. There's no result. So apparently, we have successfully been able to assign licenses to all of them who are not licensed in my environment. Let's also confirm from our GUI, active users. We'll refresh the page and see how these users are available and what they have now as their licenses. So we can see they all have licenses now in my environment, and that's the power of PowerShell to make massive changes or a lot of changes to the bulk number of users. PowerShell is the easiest version or easiest method to go about this. Let's also see something. Let's imagine our organization has improved or has expanded, and now we want to, our organization has expanded. We now have users that are now in the headquarters, and we now have branches all over the place. And we decided that, or my management has decided that users who are in the IT department will no longer be in the headquarters. They are now moving to another branch. They are leaving from, should I say, Ikoyi? They are moving from Ikoyi. They'll be going to Yaba, or they are leaving from Yaba. They are going to another location. Let's see users in the IT department. Let's just see one of them and see their location. So we have Ben. And let's see the attributes that Ben has for us, what he has under his users, his department, also his location, Ben Andrews. Sorry, it's loading. And let's see his information. We can see here that his department is information technology, and he has no office here. We can also set the office for Ben now that we know Ben has been moved to another location, or we can even filter using the department attribute. Now imagine if I have 20 users or 50 users in my IT department, and my IT department has been moved to another location, and I have to now start changing the attributes for each and every user, changing their imagine, or is the department name change, I have to change that. Imagine it's a location, I have to change that for 50 users. But with PowerShell, I can always come and filter using the get MSO command. So let's just say we want to get the users that are in the IT department, since those are the ones that have changed. So I will say, let me copy this. I'll say get MSO user, where the users department is equal to information technology. So I want the users that are in the IT department, and those are the people that I was charged with to change their location from wherever it is now to another location. So since I see that the users in IT department have come out, I have Cynthia, and I can confirm these names, that these are the users in my IT department. I can now set their location to another, or wherever is specified by my organization. So I'll use the set MSO user command and say office. Let's change the office of this user, and let's set it to, okay, Yaba. They are now in Yaba. They are no longer in Ikoyi, or they are no longer where we are. We want to change all the IT users to Yaba, and we'll click enter. So we'll go and confirm and see if we can get the office of all of these users, and we'll confirm if that has changed from GUI, and we'll also see if we can get that from the PowerShell. Let's see. Ben is one of the IT users. Let's see if his office has been populated and if it is Yaba like we specified. Ben is loading. Let's see the information under Ben. And we can see Ben now has his office in Yaba, and I've been able to change that for all of the other users. So let's see Chris, right? Chris is one of the, Cynthia is one of the users who we change our location to Yaba. Let's confirm that that has also populated for Cynthia and not just Ben alone. So from here, we can see that if we go to all those users which have changed their location, we have successfully been able to change their location from where it was before to now Yaba with just one command line. So like I said earlier, PowerShell is usually friendly, or is the best option to go when you're trying to make bulk changes to most of your users. You can use PowerShell to delete users, restore users. You can use them to do a lot of changes. So let's just also see some other things we can do with PowerShell, talking about the roles we can add to our users and the methods which we can add these roles here. Let's see the PowerShell and the GUI method first of all. The roles, so these are admin roles or privileges that will give our users the right to carry out some activities. Like me now, you can see I'm creating users easily, I'm making changes to the attributes, I'm moving freely around the admin center. And that's because me, I have the global admin role for myself. You see assigned to, and I can see the assigned admins and see the names of those who are under this. I can see Torijumo and I can see myself. So these global admin roles help you to carry out various activities. You have the exchange admin role and whatnot. So if I want to add users to this role, I can just easily click on one role and say billing admin, and I'll add a user. Which user do I want to add? Let me say I want to add Ben to this role, and I'm going to add Ben and save. And it's straightforward like that. But imagine if I have to add roles for certain users. So I just employed 10 new users to my IT admin, to my IT department, and everybody in the IT department is required to have the help desk role so that they will be able to carry out help or assistance to those in my organization. And I will have to do this for the 10 users I just employed. Am I going to start typing their names one by one? Or is there an easier way to do this? Now, to add roles or to see the roles, first of all, I can apply using PowerShell, because there are some sensitive accounts like the global admin role that we can't use PowerShell to assign. So let's just see get MSO role and see the roles that are forwarded to us by PowerShell for us to be able to assign to users. We have the global reader, but no global admin. We have the search administrator, loop administrators. We have the message center reader. We have some accounts that have enough privileges, but we don't have the highest of all privileges accounts here via the PowerShell method. We have to use that and do that using GUI for accounts like the exchange admin and also the global administrator. So these are the accounts afforded to me by the PowerShell to be able to apply. I have the name, I have the object ID, and whatever I need. Now, I can also do this in two ways, right? I can decide to use the filtering method to say I want the users in IT department, like we saw earlier, where we use the get MSO user method, and I will use the add admin role to give them the admin I want. Or I can also have a PowerShell script. On this PowerShell, sorry, my CSV script here, the users, and we have a column named role. So imagine I'm employing 20 users. I have a PowerShell CSV of these users, and I can just add a column that says the role name. So for the IT users, I have the help desk administrator. For the sales and the human resource, maybe the HR we just employed, it needs to have the dynamics role, dynamics admin role. I can just add that to a CSV. So after creating this CSV, I'll use my PowerShell to get the roles from this CSV and apply it to these users. So let's just see what the PowerShell contains and how it will work. So this is the PowerShell script. It says I should import the users from where I saved the CSV file. That CSV file we saw earlier. And the role you should get, you should use the username to apply the roles under the role column to each of these users. Let's also see the GUI and see the roles that these users have at the moment. From our CSV, we can see Ben Andrew, Cynthia Carey, we can see David Longmire. Let's see the role he has at the moment. He has no role. You can see here, manage roles, and there's no administrator roles. So let's run the PowerShell script and see if any changes will be made. Let's say enter. So it's going to get the PowerShell script, run it against the CSV which I've already created with the rows in a specific column. And it's done loading. So let's go and verify from the GUI to see if these rows have been added and what rows are specified. From my CSV, I said Chris Green should have the help desk role, and also Ben should have the global reader role. So we can just use this to verify if any changes have been made. Let's see if Ben has the global reader role now under his attributes. We can see he has the global reader role under his attributes. Let's also see for Chris if Chris has the help desk role assigned to him. And we can see now Chris has the help desk role assigned to him. So just like that, I've been able to assign roles to multiple users, over 10 users, with one line of PowerShell script. So down to license administration, we saw that earlier. We also saw how to restore licenses or how to block users. We'll see how to block users using PowerShell script and using the GUI. We have a policy that says if a user is going on leave, or if a user is going on sabbatical leave, or if some users might meet some criteria, maybe a female user or a female employee is going on maternity leave, you have to block access to this to this user's account to ensure that the user cannot access the organization anymore until he or she resumes office. Or imagine how you can do that using the GUI. You click on the user, and you can see block sign in here. So I can block access to a user from the GUI and just click block sign in. And from now on, the user will be unable to sign in until I give this user access to back, or the user resumes, and I will come and enable sign in for that user. Well, imagine if it's an organization where I have a policy for all users to have their access revoked or have their access blocked. Will I start doing this for a large number of people? Maybe every month we have like 10 users from various departments coming. The HR will send me a list or an Excel file containing the list of users that are going on leave for me to block their access. So I have to start for this, or is there an easier way to do this? So imagine they have sent me the list of people going on leave that month, and I have over 20 users in an Excel file, and I want to block access for these users as required by the organization. I can now just come here. I will show the PowerShell command. Now in this CSV, because we're using one CSV for this whole engagement, I'm just going to explain that we don't need all of these other attributes for some activities like this. All I need for this is the user principal name. So the Excel sheet that has been sent to me with the user principal name and the usernames of all of these users that are going on leave, I can just save it as a CSV file, and I can come and use this command to block their credentials. So I can see it here. It says from the CSV file which I saved in this part, the user principal name is gotten from the CSV file. Just block their credential, and I will set this to true. So true means I want this user's credentials to be blocked. This user should not have access to my organization for the moment. So we can see if that's reflected in the GUI. So that command has finished running. Let's now see if one of these users have access revoked by the PowerShell command. So you can see here it says sign in blocked. So I've successfully been able to block users that are going on leave using one line of PowerShell script once again to effect these changes over a number of users. Let's also confirm for Ben if Ben has been blocked. You can see he has been blocked also. And Cynthia Carey, which is one of the users on that list, has been blocked as well. And it's also easy because I have the list of users that have gone on leave, and I have the list already prepared. And when they come back from leave, if they have the same duration or they don't have the same duration, I can always just compile another CSV of these users whenever they're back. If they come back one after the other, I can do this using GUI to enable them have access back to the organization. But if they have the same duration and they are resuming at the same time, and I already have the CSV list, all I have to do is change this block credential string to false, and I'll be able to now regain access to them or provide access back to this each and every one of these users. And we'll see that from the GUI to confirm that these users now have access to the organization once more. So we can see that the signing block has been revoked. Now, another thing that is good, another access that we need to, another thing we use to provide management for our users is groups, right? We have groups that we create for our users, maybe the IT department, or we create a group for management to, like a security group or an Office 365 shared mailbox group, to enable users to have this experience or to provide us administrative rights or provide rights to these groups instead of doing it one by one. So let's just see how the group pane is via GUI and what we can do using the GUI. Now, if I click on these groups here that we saw, which is under users, and I click groups, I can add a group, right? Adding groups, I'll see the options or the types of group I can add. I have the M365 group, I have the distribution list, I have the mail enabled security group, and the security group. I just want us to take a side note that we connected to MSO service to be able to run those commands we were running. And for the MSO service, we only have the right to create security groups. Some of these groups are used by Teams, are used by Exchange Online. So to be able to create these groups using PowerShell, you have to connect to another PowerShell module, like the Exchange Online PowerShell module, the SharePoint Online module, and whatnot. But for the scope of this engagement, we'll be talking about security groups, because that's what we connected to, and that's what we can create on the module we connected to. So via GUI, I'm just going to say group type is security, next, and new group. What's the name of the group? I'll just say help desk. And for IT users or for staffs, IT staffs. And I'll go next. And I'm done with creating this group. So we can now close and refresh the portal to see how many groups I have. Or we can also check to see the groups available via PowerShell, which we'll see in a moment. So if I come to the PowerShell, right, and I do the get MSO group, we can see the groups available on my tenant. We have the help desk, which I just created, and the object ID. For PowerShell, PowerShell recognizes the object ID of a group and really not the display name or the group type and the description of the group. These are just extra attributes of PowerShell. PowerShell recognizes just the object ID. So if I'm referring to a group, or I want to see the members of a group, I'll have to check using the object ID. So let's go back and see that this group has been added, has been reflected in the PowerShell, in the GUI, and this is the help desk group. Now let's see how to create a group using PowerShell. I'm just going to say new MSO group, and what's the name of this group? I want it to be Infotech. Sorry. And enter. And immediately I've created a group. So what we did in GUI, you can see that it's actually even faster. Although it was fast in the GUI, but it's actually faster using the PowerShell script. And let's verify that this group has been created. Get MSO group. And we can see we now have a group named Infotech, and we can verify using the GUI. Now I created this group named Help Desk for my IT staff, right? And I want to add my IT staffs to this group. I can check to see who are the members of this group at the moment. I don't have any group owners. I don't have any group members. We have 0 group members, 0 group owners. I can add them using GUI one after the other, but I might not know the total number of people in the IT department, or it might be stressful because there are like 50 users in the IT department and I want to add them to a group like this. How do I do this? Using PowerShell. Okay, we'll see the command that we can use to add users to groups using PowerShell. So we can do it both ways, right? I can decide to add a single user to this group, or I can add a bulk number of users. And for PowerShell, I have a script I created. I will just show us that script in a bit. Talking about how I can add users to a group. Let's see. So in this script, I have where my users are located, right? And I have the group I want to add them to, which is this. And I said PowerShell recognizes just the group ID of the group. It doesn't recognize the group name. It doesn't recognize any other attribute of the group, just the group ID. So I want my users that are saved in this CSV file to be added to the help desk group. How do I do this? This is the help desk group, and this is the object ID that's recognized by PowerShell. I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to replace that in my PowerShell script, which I'm going to be running. So I have successfully replaced the group ID on my PowerShell script, and I'm going to save. And I'll close this PowerShell script. Now, to use the PowerShell script, I have to navigate to where I saved the PowerShell script. And I saved that on my C drive in a folder named MCT. And I'm just going to navigate there. So now I'm in the C drive, and I know the name of my PowerShell script, which is, we saw earlier, is add group to group. So I'm just going to say A and tab, and it'll bring out the PowerShell script. And I'll press enter to help me add my users to this group. So after doing this, we added users to the help desk group. We'll go and check to verify that these are our users that were added using this PowerShell script are actually in the help desk group via the GUI. We can also verify the users in a group using PowerShell. So let's just try that. Get MSO group members. And like I said, PowerShell recognizes just the group ID and not the group name. So let's see the members in this group ID. So we can see that now we have Chris Green, Ben Andrews, David, and all of these users in this group. Let's now verify this using the GUI. Let's click Help Desk where we saw 0 members earlier. And we can see we now have 10 users in the group. So that's basically a few of the things we can get our hands on using PowerShell and using the GUI. And we can see the ease which the GUI provides for some cases and the ease with which PowerShell provides for most of the cases that really has to do with making changes to bulk users. So with that, we can just come to the end of my presentation. And if you have any questions, you can ask me now. Thank you for that.